Hello everyone, you keep waiting to feel like it. You keep waiting for that fire, that spark, that little burst of motivation to show up and push you to work. But let me tell you something. Motivation is a guest. Discipline is a resident. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Motivation will wake you up one day and abandon you the next. But discipline will drag you out of bed even when your body screams a no. Discipline will show up when you're emotional, when your emotion can. That's the difference between people who dream and people who do. You can't depend on feelings to dictate your actions. Feelings lie to you. They come and go like the weather. One day you're fired up, ready to take on the world. And the next day you can barely get out of bed. That's why people start strong and fade fast. That's why so many talk about what they want, but so few ever get it. Because they're waiting to feel ready. Waiting for the right moment, the right vibe, the right energy. But life doesn't wait. Opportunity doesn't wait. Winners don't wait. Discipline is what separates the ones who dream from the ones who do. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need motivation to function. Discipline is that internal switch that flips on even when your body screams no. It's when you lace up your shoes in the dark before sunrise. Not because you want it, but because you said you would. It's when you study even when your eyes are heavy because you promise yourself you'll be ready when your chance comes. That's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Habits don't need hype. Habits don't need hype. They don't need a crowd cheering. Habits are your quiet soldiers marching toward greatness. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is mechanical. It's the system you build to keep yourself moving even when your emotions quit on you. You need to stop being addicted to feeling good and start being obsessed with doing good. Stop chasing that motivational high like it's a drug. That feeling fades, bro. That feeling fades. What lasts is repetition. You don't need fireworks to move forward. You need focus. You don't need loud music and speeches every morning. You need a plan that doesn't care how tired you are. When you build habits that align with your purpose, your actions become automatic. You don't have to talk yourself into working. It's just what you do. You don't have to hype yourself up to grind. It's just who you are. Think about it. Brushing your teeth doesn't require motivation. You don't wake up and debate it, you just do it. That's what discipline does. It takes the debate out of success. It removes the choice. Once something becomes a habit, your body moves before your mind can make excuses. That's where power begins. That's where consistency lives. When you stop waiting to feel like it and start doing it regardless, that's when your entire life shifts. Motivation is temporary energy. Discipline is permanent structure. You can't build a skyscraper on emotion. You build it on a foundation of consistency. Every day you show up, even when you don't want to, you're pouring another layer of concrete into that foundation. That's how strength is built. Not in bursts, but in bricks. You're not always going to have perfect days. You're not always going to crush every workout, every study session, every goal. But discipline says, I'm still here. It's showing up when you're uninspired, when you're frustrated, when you feel stuck, and doing it anyway. That's how the greats separate themselves. They learn that consistency beats intensity. You don't have to go 100 every day. You just have to go. You just have to move forward, one disciplined decision at a time. When you train yourself to act, regardless of feeling, you become unstoppable. Because now your emotions can't control your progress. You could be sad, tired, stressed, but discipline keeps you moving. You could be unmotivated for months, but your habits won't let you quit. That's real freedom. That's power. Because most people are prisoners of their moods. They only work when it's convenient. They only show up when it feels right. But you're building something different. You're building reliability. You're becoming the kind of person who can be trusted, not just by others, but by yourself. Every time you follow through, you prove to yourself that your word means something. And that belief compounds. Discipline doesn't shout, it whispers. It says, just one more rep, just one more hour, just one more try. And that whisper over time becomes your inner voice. It becomes the soundtrack of your success. Every champion you admire learned to quiet their emotions and obey their habits. They weren't always motivated, they were trained. They programmed their days so deeply that quitting wasn't even an option. That's what separates a professional from an amateur. The amateur waits for passion, the professional shows up regardless. You can't wait to feel ready. Readiness is built in the doing. So start building systems that work even when you don't feel like working. That's where you grind. Schedule your grind. Set routines that remove decision fatigue. Make it harder to quit than to continue. Because once you take feeling out of the equation, you remove your biggest obstacle, yourself. You'll start to see that discipline doesn't drain you, it frees you. It frees you from guilt, from procrastination, from self-doubt. It gives you control. Everybody's excited on day one. Everybody's fired up when they start something new. You set a goal, you make a plan, and for a while it feels good. The energy is high, the motivation is flowing, and everything seems possible. But here's the truth, excitement fades. That high doesn't last. And when it does, most people stop. They quit the moment it stops being fun. But commitment, that's a whole different game. Commitment is what kicks in when the hype dies. It's the quiet force that says, I'm staying even when I don't feel like staying. It's showing up on the hard days, the boring days, the days when no one's clapping for you, because real progress doesn't happen during the hype. It happens during the grind. You see, excitement is emotional, commitment is spiritual. Excitement comes from what you can see. Commitment comes from what you believe. When you're excited, you move because it feels good. When you're committed, you move because it's right. There's a difference between being interested and being invested. Interested people show up when it's easy. Invested people show up no matter what. When you're committed, quitting isn't even an option. You don't care how you feel, what the weather's like, or who's watching. You made a promise to yourself, and that promise means everything. That's what separates average from exceptional. Think about it. Everyone loves a start. The first day of a new gym membership, the first week of a business idea, the first month of chasing a dream. But what happens when the results don't come fast enough? What happens when the excitement wears off and it's just you and the work? That's when most people disappear. They vanish because they were only motivated, not committed. The greats, the legends, they don't rely on motivation. They have made an unbreakable decision. I will not stop until I see it through. Commitment doesn't ask how long it takes. It asks, are you willing to go all the way? When you're committed, you start to move differently. You start to take ownership of everything. Your time, your energy, your focus. You stop blaming circumstances and start adapting. Because you understand that success doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to execution. You stop chasing feelings and start chasing results. You understand that the work won't always be glamorous. There will be days when it's repetitive, lonely, frustrating. But commitment doesn't care. It keeps showing up. It doesn't stop because it doesn't get attention or applause. It moves in silence. And over time, it builds something unstoppable, consistency. You can't build anything meaningful without consistency. Motivation is a spark, but consistency is the fire that keeps you warm when everything around you is cold. Commitment keeps that fire burning. It's what you fall back on when you're tired, when you're stressed, when nothing seems to be working. You don't give up, you adjust, you learn, you keep going. That's what true discipline looks like. It's not about how passionate you are on day one, it's about how persistent you are on day 100. When you're truly committed, every obstacle becomes fuel, every failure becomes feedback. You stop seeing problems as reasons to quit. You see them as chances to prove how bad you want it. Excitement fades because it's emotional. It's built on the surface. Commitment lasts because it's rooted in your values. When you commit, you're saying, this means something to me. You're saying, this is bigger than how I feel today. That's why it's so powerful. Commitment gives you purpose, and purpose gives you direction. Even when you're lost, tired, uncertain, your commitment pulls you back. It reminds you why you started. It keeps your feet moving when your heart wants to stop. It keeps you anchored when everything else is trying to pull you away. Most people never reach their potential because they confuse being excited with being committed. They want the reward, but not the routine. They want the spotlight, but not the struggle. The truth is, commitment is built in the dark. It's built when nobody's watching, when nobody's praising, when it's just you and the grind. Every single day you show up, you strengthen your foundation. Every rep, every late night, every early morning is a brick in your wall. That wall That's what protects your dream when the storm hits. Motivation won't save you then, but commitment will. If you only work when it feels good, you'll never go far. Because feelings change, but principles don't. The committed don't chase comfort, they chase character. They do what's right, not what's easy. They don't need the perfect conditions, they create them. They understand that growth lives in discomfort, so they embrace the pain, the repetition, the monotony. You want to win, but you keep negotiating with your dreams. You keep trying to talk yourself into shortcuts, talk yourself out of hard work, talk yourself into comfort. But your goals don't care about your excuses. They don't care about how tired you are, how stressed you feel, how busy your schedule is, or how unfair life seems. Your goals are cold, quiet, and unbending. They sit there waiting for you to show up again and again until you earn them. The truth is, the universe doesn't reward people who wish. It rewards people who work. You can tell everyone what you plan to do, but until you do it, it's just noise. Excuses don't build empires. Excuses don't pay off debt. Excuses don't pay off debt. Excuses don't transform lives, action does. Every time you make an excuse, you're robbing yourself. You're stealing time, momentum, and opportunity from your own future. You're saying, I want the prize, but not the price. But success doesn't work that way. It doesn't bargain. It demands full payment, up front. No discounts, no payment plans, no refunds. You either pay with effort, sacrifice, and consistency, or you stay exactly where you are. The people who win aren't necessarily smarter or luckier. They just refuse to stop. They refuse to justify their laziness. They don't make excuses because they understand that every excuse has a cost. You can have excuses or you can have results, but you can't have both. When you say, I'm too tired, someone out there is just as tired, but they're still doing the work. When you say it's too hard, someone else is using that same challenge as fuel. The difference isn't the situation, it's the standard. Winners have higher standards for themselves. They don't lower the bar when things get tough. They rise to meet it. They know that the path to greatness is paved with obstacles, and they're okay with that. They don't complain about the struggle. They embrace it because they know struggle is the birthplace of strength. Every setback, every rejection, every failure, it's not a reason to stop. It's a test of how bad you really want it. You can't keep saying you want to be successful and then keep living with excuses. Your goals are not emotional. They don't care about your reasons. You can cry, you can stress, you can doubt. But at the end of the day, the question remains, did you show up? Did you put in the work? Did you stay disciplined when no one was watching? That's what counts. You can pray for success, read every book, listen to every motivational speech. But if you don't act, nothing changes. Life responds to execution, not intention. You can't manifest your dreams while sitting still. You have to move. You have to grind sometimes. Because the truth is, the grind doesn't respect words. It only respects work. You keep waiting for the right time, but there is no right time. You're waiting for things to get easier, but they won't. The grind doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. You learn to carry more. You build endurance. You build resilience. And all of that happens only when you stop making excuses and start showing up no matter what. If you only work when it's convenient, you'll never build consistency. If you only show up when you feel good, you'll never master discipline. You have to make yourself show up even when you're exhausted, even when you're frustrated, even when the results aren't visible yet. That's how progress works. It hides before it reveals itself. Excuses sound good because they protect your ego. They give you permission to stay the same. But that comfort comes with a price, regret. And regret will haunt you longer than any failure ever could. Failure is temporary. Regret is permanent. Failure teaches. Regret torments. Every time you choose an excuse, you're choosing regret. You're choosing to look back one day and say, I could have done more, but you don't have to live that way. You can decide today that your goals are worth more than your comfort. You can decide that your future matters more than your feelings. You can decide that no excuse will ever be stronger than your will. When you make that decision, your life shifts. Suddenly you stop talking about what's possible and start living it. You stop saying someday and start saying it's today. You stop giving yourself options to quit. That's when real growth begins. when you remove the safety net, when you cut off the exit routes, when you commit fully. Discipline becomes your weapon. It becomes the voice that says, do it anyway. You're tired, do it anyway. You failed yesterday, do it anyway. You're scared, do it anyway. Because every anyway brings you closer to success. Every anyway builds your strength. And over time, those small, relentless acts of discipline crush every excuse you've ever made. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about doing everything right. It's about doing something every day. Small wins, small actions, small steps. That's how greatness is built. Everyone wants to make giant leaps. But the truth is, success doesn't come from the leaps you take once in a while. It comes from the steps you take every single day, even when no one's watching, even when no one's watching, even when it feels like you're not moving fast enough. Every rep, every page, every late night and early morning, they all count. They all stack up. Over time, those small wins build unshakable confidence, the kind that can't be faked, the kind that comes only from showing up over and over again. You see people overestimate intensity and underestimate consistency. They think success is about doing something massive once, but it's really about doing the small things well for a long time. The difference between those who wish and those who win is in talents. Habit. The little things you do daily shape who you become. If you're disciplined enough to do the small things right, the big things take care of themselves. That's what most people miss. They think discipline is about grinding nonstop until burnout. But it's not. Discipline is steady, it's quiet. It's patient. It's that commitment to do what needs to be done. Whether it's glamorous or not, whether it's fun or not. Because you understand that every small win brings you closer to the big victory. When you start stacking those wins, something powerful happens. You start trusting yourself. You begin to realize that you can rely on you. You no longer need someone else to push you, to remind you, to motivate you. You become your own engine, and that's real freedom. That's real power. Because when you start keeping promises to yourself, your confidence grows from a place that no one can touch. It's not built on likes, followers, or applause. It's built on evidence. Every time you do what you say you do, you're collecting proof that you're capable, that you're strong, that you're built for this. That's what real confidence looks like. Quiet, earned, unshakable. Discipline doesn't give you quick results, and that's why so many people quit. We live in a world that worships instant gratification, fast money, fast fame, fast progress. But anything that comes fast usually fades just as fast. Discipline is the opposite. Slow, it's steady, it's solid, it builds something that lasts. When you commit to small, consistent wins, you're building a foundation that can't be shaken by failure or fear. You might not see progress immediately, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you protect it, and you trust the process, because you know that growth takes time. And here's the thing, those small wins are what keep you moving when motivation fades. You can't always rely on hype, but you can rely on the satisfaction of progress. Every time you complete a task, every time you stick to your plan, you get a small dose of victory. It might seem insignificant in a moment, but those little victories are rewiring your brain. They're teaching you to associate effort with success, action with results. That's how habits are built, through repetition and reward. Over time, the discipline that once felt hard becomes natural. You don't have to think about it. It becomes who you are. You don't chase motivation anymore because you built momentum. Small wins aren't just about getting closer to your goals. They're about becoming the kind of person who deserves them. They shape your identity. Every day you show up, even when it's hard, you're telling yourself, I'm someone who doesn't quit, and that identity is everything. Because once you believe that, you start acting like it. You start thinking like it. You stop questioning your worth and start proving it through your actions. Confidence isn't about ego, it's about evidence. You can't fake discipline, you can't fake consistency. You either put in the work or you don't, and the ones who do, they walk differently, they talk differently, they carry a quiet certainty that comes from earned respect, self-respect. The reason so many people feel lost, insecure, or unsure of themselves is because they keep breaking promises to themselves. They say they'll wake up early, and they hit snooze. They say they'll eat better, and they don't. They say they'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Every broken promise chips away at their confidence, but the opposite is true too. Every small victory builds it back. Every time you keep your word, even in the smallest way, you rebuild trust in yourself. And that trust becomes unshakable strength. You don't need external validation anymore because you've proven to yourself that you're dependable. Discipline is not punishment. It's a form of love. It's not about restriction or suffering. It's about protection. It's self-respect in motion. When you discipline yourself, you're saying, I love myself enough not to let my feelings decide my future. You're saying, I care about the person I'm becoming more than the comfort I feel right now. Too many people see discipline as something harsh, something that takes away their freedom. But that's not true. The undisciplined life is the one without freedom. When you live without discipline, you become a slave to your impulses, to laziness, to emotions that change every minute. Discipline is what sets you free. It's what allows you to control your time, your habits, and your destiny. It's the language of self-love spoken through action. When you love yourself, you don't let yourself off the hook. You don't give yourself permission to settle for average. You hold yourself accountable because you know you deserve more. You know your potential is greater than your excuses. That's what discipline really is. It's love translated into structure. It's saying no to distractions because you're saying yes to your dreams. It's turning off the TV, putting down the phone, and getting to work, not because you have to, but because you get to. You're honoring the future version of yourself by making the hard choices today. And that kind of love, the one that requires sacrifice, that's the love that changes lives. People think love is about comfort, but real love is about growth. And growth never happens in comfort. It happens in the stretch, in the sacrifice, in the moments when you choose to do what's right instead of what's easy. Every time you choose discipline, you're telling yourself, I'm worth the effort. You're saying, my goals, my peace, my future, they matter. That's why discipline feels hard sometimes, because love isn't always soft. Sometimes love looks like setting boundaries. Sometimes love looks like saying no to temporary pleasure, so you can say yes to lasting fulfillment. When you start viewing discipline as love instead of punishment, everything changes. You stop resenting the work. You stop dreading the grind. You start seeing it as an act of care. So every time you wake up early, every time you eat clean, every time you push through fatigue, you're building a better version of you. You're showing up for yourself. You're investing in your future self, the same way a parent sacrifices for their child. Not out of obligation, but out of love. Because you want to see that version of you thrive. You want to see that dream come alive. And that requires discipline, not once in a while, but every day. Discipline protects what matters most. It guards your dream from distraction. It guards your focus from temptation. It guards your time from waste. Without discipline, everything meaningful in your life is vulnerable. Your health, your finance, your relationships, your purpose. But with discipline, you create structure. You create a foundation that keeps you steady even when life gets chaotic. You don't crumble every time something goes wrong because you've trained yourself to stand firm. That's what discipline does. It strengthens you from the inside out, builds the muscle of self-control. And that's one of the most powerful muscles you can ever develop. You have to stop seeing discipline as the enemy of happiness. It's actually the path to it. Because when you live with discipline, you live with integrity. You stop disappointing yourself. You stop living with regret. You stop making promises you don't keep. And that brings peace, a deep, quiet peace that only comes when your actions match your intention. You can't buy that kind of peace. You can't fake it. You earn it through discipline. Every time you follow through, every time you push through resistance, you build a little more pride in yourself. You start walking differently. You start thinking differently. You start realizing that you don't need external validation because you've already proven something to yourself. Discipline teaches you patience. It reminds you that good things take time. In a world that glorifies quick results, discipline teaches you to slow down and trust the process. It teaches you that progress isn't always visible, but it's always happening. It reminds you that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. Every disciplined choice compounds over time. Every decision to stay focused. Every moment you resist distraction, Every time you choose purpose over pleasure, you're building momentum. And one day, that momentum becomes unstoppable. One day, you'll look back and realize that every small disciplined act was an act of love that carried you to your dream.